Welcome back to the Havoc Rundown. I'm your host, Justin. We're rolling full steam ahead with our Around the World Summer Series, this time heading south, way south to Australia. In this episode, we're diving into one of the most passionate, creative, and tight-knit combat robotics communities anywhere on the globe. Our guest tonight is one of the most influential figures in the Australian combat robotics scene, Ben Hayton, right? Is that how you say it?
That's correct, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for being on the show, Ben.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Ben is founder of Team Panic, from building iconic bots like Soda Bottle Robot and Shooty McShootface, to helping grow the Adelaide Combat Robotics Club, to sharing designs and tutorials online for builders around the world. Ben's not just a competitor, he's a mentor, maker, and media force in the sport. Whether it's filming battles, releasing educational content, or publishing open source design, Ben's been a cornerstone of helping robot combat thrive in Australia and beyond. We're incredibly excited to have him with us, and to help me bring this episode to life is the semi-full Havoc Rundown crew. Each one of these folks brings a different lens to our conversation, from stats to stories to strategy, and they make this podcast what it is. So without further ado, Ryan Hunter.
Hello.
Thomas Carroll.
It's me.
Tony Baker.
Hey, everyone.
Ashley's not with us tonight, but in her place we have a returning collaborator, our freestyle queen, Megan Winter.
Hello, hello.
So we're going to jump right in. We're going to start by going to that corner of the studio run by a resident stat fanatic. So take it away, Ryan.
Oh, well, we're still not going into the game corner. I'm sorry. I ordered a bunch of sheetrock. It's going to get done soon. A couple more episodes, and then it'll be done, I promise, okay? All right.
We're
We're going to go into the map room now.
Oh, no.
So, in my map room, we're going to go and we're going to talk to Ben about Australia and the Australian combat robotics scene. Hi, Ben.
Hi, how's it going?
Why don't you tell us about the Australian combat robotics scene and what you do within it?
Sure. So the Australian combat robotics scene is interesting because we have like an old guard and a new group, effectively. The old guard are people who fought kind of like late 90s, early 2000s, around the kind of original runs of BattleBots and Robot Wars on TV. They fought in a lot of the like featherweight size stuff, and they were fighting really regularly with featherweights. And then they basically got to a point where like the TV shows petered out and they started losing like competitors, and the competitors they were having issues keeping featherweight sized robots running every month or every other month. And so they slowly kind of like peeled back how many combat robot events they were doing until it's just one guy running like 2 to 3 featherweight events a year. And that was basically all the sport really was in Australia until BattleBots restarted and Robot Wars restarted. And then a couple of guys in Adelaide, where I'm from, picked up and started a monthly antweight meet, effectively, like started it out of back shed of one of their houses, and have slowly grown this into like monthly ant and beetle fights. And spurred on by that, we had Melbourne and Sydney have now done that as well, and Ipswich, which is up by like Brisbane in the Gold Coast. So you still have like the featherweight stuff, but there is this kind of newer group that's all about, you know, once a month get together, fight ants or fight beetles. And they tend to be kind of, at least in Adelaide, we're a smaller, like close-knit community. A lot of it is not about like winning the competition. It's about, you know, building interesting things and fighting them and having a bit of fun with it. You know, putting on a good show for the smallish crowd that we gather when we fight robots.
I think that rolls directly into my next question, which is what's the difference between the Australian and American combat scenes that you know? I know you've been up here at least one.
Yes. So I have so far I have fought in America 3 times, and I've fought in the UK twice. One of them in America wasn't my own robot because I went to BattleBots in 2018, and I was part of Team Gemini for that. But then I did an NHRL, and I've done the last AVC, I think, was the other one. And in terms of, I think it was the last AVC that I was there for, which I think was, 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. As to your question, the difference, I feel like the difference is that Australia, at least from my perspective, feels smaller. There are less people in the sport. I would say that I know personally like 90% of the Australian building community, which I feel like would be impossible to do in America. Like, I feel like you guys just have so many more people doing it that, there are people who will be really, really good in the sport, but like never make it to NHRL, whereas in Australia, Adelaide's about to have our big event of the year. We will get a significant portion of the building community come to that event because it's a big 2-day event. We, run a bunch of different weight classes. It is our big kind of draw card.
Yeah, I mean, right now in America, it's kind of like you can meet a lot of people, and it's very interesting because we're going to have the Team Scorpios is going to come to NHRL. But I mean, we've even been to, it's even it sometimes feels like a small community here because there's a lot of like, we'll go all the way down to Pennsylvania to Motorama, and it's like, oh, I know almost every single person here except for maybe these couple people, and these couple people will be like, oh, I know all the other people that you know. It's like, yeah, okay, awesome. Everybody kind of knows each other, but at the same time, there's also like all the West Coast people that we sometimes get to meet. But that's really awesome. You said that you guys focus less on the competitive aspect, more on the creative aspect. Is that also?
I have to add in one thing.
What?
Because we're going all around the world and not everybody knows geography.
Yeah. It's true.
I want to add in a little bit, like, because we talked to some people from the group from England, and we talked to the group from the Netherlands, and it's like those are very small countries. Australia is not that.
Oh, I know. Australia is huge. Yeah,
massive. Like, Australia is almost the size of the United States.
Yep.
However, most of it's empty.
Yeah, I know that. There's that big area in the middle. You don't go.
Most of it's empty. So while the size is huge, the population's not that big. And we're all right around that coastal line. So it's like, I can see how like, it's basically like the whole Northeast. You know that group of people over there, but like the West Coast, you might not know. So
yeah. I mean, and also, like I said, featherweight events, there is only, 1 or 2 a year. So if you want to fight feathers, you have to go where the feathers are. Like, that is your only option, effectively. In Adelaide, we're starting to try and do feathers. Like I said, we've got our big event of the year coming up this weekend, which is also called Havoc, which doesn't help with like NHRL and things. But we are putting in featherweight sportsmen's for that. The second time we're running featherweight sportsmen's. The first time we borrowed the featherweight arena that existed, and now we're kind of building our own arena to run featherweight sportsmen's in. But yeah, I mean, as I said, like it is kind of small. When I went to NHRL, I feel like the pits there had more builders than Australia has builders for the weekend I was at NHRL. So
yeah. What is one more question, and then we'll head to the 5-minute focus. I'm very interested. Australia's like its own area and everything like that. Where do you get parts? Like, do a lot of the builders there like ship in all the custom built stuff that I know we have in America, and I know England has their own sort of community that's doing that? What do you have your own like custom builders, or are you shipping in parts from Seth? And
so we have a couple of people who run combat robotics focused stores, but there's not the same level of stuff that they provide, like, Seth or like Turner Bots or the Bristol Bot builders, who are providing, like custom done things. There's a couple of people who like, we've got a guy who does clones of the Malinky Nano. So that's a custom-ish thing, but like nobody's offering hub motors, for example, here. And a lot of the people who run the stores are kind of running it half as a hobby. Like this Australian scene isn't big enough to like have somebody be like, yeah, this is my full-time job is to supply combat robot parts. So like we get parts from them, but also China is very close. So a lot of parts for our robots come from China. Whether that's, like off-the-shelf brushless motors or whatever, or people, getting CNC and manufacturing stuff done in China and sent here. They do have a couple of guys who, own and run CNC machines. So if you go up to them and say, hey, here's some money, here's a step file, please, they'll cut your parts out and stuff.
Nice.
But there's only a few of them, so you kind of have to like pick and choose a little bit, because especially coming up to a big event, if you go up to them too late, they're like, look, the machine is full until the event happens. Like, sorry, you're out of luck. Like,
Yeah, it makes sense.
So you don't have like a send cut send?
No. It was interesting. We had some guys who it seemed like they were running like a motorcycle, like a custom motorcycle parts shop. They tried to set up something that looked like Send Cut Send, like it basically like mimicked the Send Cut Send website, and it was running for about a month. And in that month, parts came out pretty quickly. And then after that, like things just like it hit Christmas time and other stuff happened. And then suddenly they were like massive lead time delays. And I think their website's not even up anymore at this point.
Wow.
So with your proximity to China, do you see a lot of Chinese competitors come to Australia, to Australian events? Do you get any Chinese competitors?
No, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think Australia is so isolated that we really don't see a lot of like international competitors. The most we've seen is like the Endgame guys have come over for a couple of events here and there. In fact, pre-Endgame, they bought 2 featherweight like precursors to Endgame to an Australian featherweight championship and like annihilated all the Australians and then built Endgame and took it to BattleBots, and we're all like, yeah, okay, like we understand. We were the test run for this design.
Good luck, Americans. You're screwed now.
Now I want to see the featherweight version of Endgame fight. That sounds fun.
Yeah, that sounds
game.
awesome. Yeah, that's cool. There's such a tight-knit community. Like with you, I mean, it's a literal island, like a giant island. So you guys all have, like you said, know each other and everything like that. It's very cool to have the Endgame guys there, because that is a team that I have always wanted to meet. I love their robot and what they did on BattleBots. So that's a really cool story. I like that you were able to meet them and they came over for a couple events. Ryan, do you have anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Very cool.
And your map room.
Yes. Okay. Everybody get out of the map room. I have people coming. I have people coming to finish up the wiring in the game room soon. We'll get you all out of here. Maybe, one more time next week. And then after that, the game room will be back.
Yippee!
Okay, thank you, Ryan, for the game room. So we are going to move on to our signature segment, which is our 5 in Focus. So with this segment, Ben, I don't know if you really listen to the show, but basically what we do is whenever we have a guest on, each of us comes up with a unique question to ask that guest based on their bot building, their background, anything really. It's just kind of in-depth questions that each of us want to ask to just kind of get to know who we have on the show. So the first one that I have asking a question is Tony.
So I'm the educator of the group, so I always ask questions about college and stuff like that. So for aspiring robot builders, because there's a lot of kids who are like, I want to go to Australia to go to college. And it's like, just because they want to get away from the United States, and it's that allure to get as far away as possible. So for aspiring robot builders looking to go away to college, are there any really good robotics colleges or higher end engineering colleges in Australia?
So this is an interesting one for me because I obviously wanted to get into, like, I'm a software engineer, an electrical and software engineer. I wanted to get into robotics when I was younger. And when I was going to, like, apply for, so university is what we call it in Australia. When I was going to apply for university, a lot of, like, options weren't really robotics focused. Like, you could do mechanical engineering, you could do electrical engineering, you could do software engineering, but you couldn't do, like, robotics or even mechatronics, or like mechatronics engineering, which is effectively robotics engineering because it gives you a little bit of mechanical, a little bit of electrical, a little bit of programming, enough to kind of get you to a point you can build robots. So I had to go through and do electrical and software because mechatronics kind of was just starting up and everybody was like, don't do mechatronics. Nobody's going to know in the workforce what mechatronics engineering is. Like, if you do that, you'll never get a job. And I was like, oh God, well, okay, I need to do something.
I need a job.
Yeah. Having said that, I would say, like, to your question of, like, which university to go for, all of the capital cities have a university named after them. So, like, there's the University of Adelaide, where I am. There's, like, the University of Sydney. There's the University of Melbourne. All of them have good engineering degrees in them. It does come down to a little bit of what you want out of your engineering degree, because some of them go more theoretical and, like, give you a lot of book learning and, like, a lot of the background behind all of the things you're doing. And some of them lean a little more practical, where you get more hands-on time, like doing experimentation and things and kind of learning that way. And yeah, I would say that you can't really go wrong if you choose to come to Australia for a degree. We do a decent job, I think, of producing qualified engineers. So
thank you. That's cool. Cool look into the and when you said college, I was like, that's not what it's called. And I think you asked Garrett the same question.
Yeah.
Or Gareth, yeah.
Yeah, they call them universities outside.
You mean university?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are things called colleges here in Australia, but they are what we call, like, they're residential colleges. So it's effectively like on-campus housing that you guys have in colleges in America, but slightly off-campus. So they'll be within walking distance of the university you're going to, but they're not really affiliated with the university. They're just like, we've got a giant group of students together, come and stay here and we'll feed you and, you know, have a social calendar for you to do things. And
see, really the only difference in the United States between the two is colleges are typically a little smaller and universities are the bigger ones. That's really the only difference. So it's like the kids are always like, I'm going to college. Like, they never say I'm going to university, but that's really where they're going.
So universities here are very big. In actual fact, that is something I should probably point out in terms of recommending and talking about universities. So I did a exchange during my university. I went and I did an exchange in Berkeley, California. So I was in Pitzer College and Harvey Mudd for 6 months. The big difference from American education, especially for private education versus Australian universities, is class sizes. Over there, class sizes were 24 students maximum. Here, class sizes are huge. My Maths 1A lecture, which is the maths required to get into engineering or to do engineering in general, was 1,000 students.
Wow.
What? We have some classes that are 300-400 kids, especially for those intro classes. I don't think I've ever heard of 1,000. I do not want to be that teacher.
They did 2 lectures a day. There was a 9 a.m. lecture and a 4 p.m. lecture. They were identical. It was just because the only auditorium they had was a 500-seat auditorium. That was the biggest auditorium they could get access to. So they ran the class twice, and you just picked which one you wanted to go to. Did you do the 9 a.m. one, or did you do the 4 p.m. one?
Why not just make it a live stream at that point? Nobody's asking questions in that room.
Yeah, I mean, look, while I was going through, there was a big push to put all classes online, which did end up being very useful come 2020, when that was how you could do lectures. But yeah, there was a lot of recording of those because you're right. Very rarely did people have questions during a 500 student lecture.
This is not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan, go ahead.
All right. My question is, I know that you do a lot of unique things. I know you have a lot of bots under your belt. How do you start a new build for a bot, and where do you get your inspiration?
Oh, inspiration is an interesting one. I have a backlog of robot ideas just kind of kicking around all the time. And often if something goes on the backlog and stays there too long, like the longer it's there, the chance that it ever gets built decreases rapidly. Because I feel like, especially with my builds, my inspirations are like taking in other things. So watching a bunch of YouTube videos, not necessarily just combat robot stuff, like maker-focused stuff in general. Because there's always times where, like, I feel like combat robots as a hobby is a grand expression of, like, oh, here's a thing that works, let's try and make that do combat. Like, whether it's electronics that aren't made for us, that are, like, made for drones that we are forcing to, like, drive our robots, or, like, build techniques and things that people have done to, you know, put it together a table, and you're like, oh, that connection system looks interesting. If I try that in TPU, is it going to work? So a lot of, like, inspiration kind of comes from those types of things where it's like watching something and going, I see a robot in there. I mean, you mentioned weird robots. One of my favorite things to do is to look at toys, household junk, and go, you know what? I think I can robot that. Like, I think I can take that shape and turn it into a combat robot.
I think I can robot that. I love that.
Yeah.
That should be a catchphrase on a t-shirt.
I mean, look, I have been thinking about doing merch for a long time. Maybe this is where I start.
Yes.
And look, to that point, one of the things that I've, like, got on my bucket list for robot building is I want to do specifically an international event where I pack the electronics in my luggage and I fly to an event. A week to 3 days beforehand, I walk into a store and I buy a bunch of stuff and build the chassis of the robot, like, there, effectively. You know, sign up the robot well in advance, get all the electronics sorted, and then, walk it. Like, if I was doing it in America, just for the video title, it would have to be like walking into a Walmart and just, like, grabbing some stuff. And yeah,
I have had this idea for years and years, and I've talked about it before, probably not on this podcast, but I've talked about it before. I've always wanted to do a competition of, like, maybe like 6 people, of, like, everybody picks a big box store of their own, and you can only use stuff from the big box store, and that's it. You have to, like, you put all the names in a cap, and then you pull it out, whichever one, be like Walmart, like Home Depot, like something like up here in Northeast, we have Ocean State Job Lot, which is like discount store kind of thing.
It's
just
the best.
Stuff like that.
It's the best.
It is the best store in the world. But, you know.
I'm team Job Lot.
Yeah,
and this is starting to get into my question, so I figure I should ask this.
Oh, sorry.
now.
Sorry.
No, it's specific to Australia. Ben, have you ever used parts from either Cashies or JB Hi-Fi to build any of your robots?
Somebody's done some research on Australia and also pronunciations of Australian store names. That's impressive.
That's Thomas for it.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm going to preface this by saying, so for everybody else here, Cashies is the Australian, like, nickname for a store called Cash Converters, which it's a pawn shop, basically. Like, they, you know...
That's on the nose. It's a little on the nose.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it is. And it is in the grand Australian tradition of giving something a slang term by just shortening it. as far as possible and still having it
Knackers.
be like defined as a thing. So to your question, caches, yes, absolutely. Caches is a great place to like go in and you find, like they've got a broken drill and they're like, we don't care about it, $5 for it, which is great to like strip that apart and have a motor to run a robot with. But it's one of those places that you need to like understand what you're getting yourself in for, because anything that they have that works and is popular, they're going to price quite high. So it's not like you walk into caches and just assume that anything in there is going to be the best price for the thing that you're looking at. You really need to be going for their like discount bin, their broken stuff that you're like, oh, cool. No, this is broken for, somebody wanting to use it as a drill, but I can use this for a robot because the parts I care about are going to be fine.
It sounds like a Goodwill, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe it's closer to a Goodwill. We have Goodwill here, which is like...
Goodwill doesn't sell broken things.
Oh,
so I
yeah,
think
they do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, but Goodwill is all donations. Cash converters,
Yes.
they pay you for your trash.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's better than Goodwill. Just a little bit better.
That's the name Cash Converter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, they're definitely like a pawn shop. That's what they do. They pawn items for people. We have our own version of Goodwill, which is Salvos, or the Salvation Army, and they're the same thing. They take in donations, they then put them on display and sell them back to people to, raise money for their causes, basically. Also, sometimes a good place to go to get parts, although not often, because Salvos generally doesn't do electronic stuff. There's a couple around the place that will, but for the most part, they just like blanket ban electronics. And speaking of electronics, you also asked about JB Hi-Fi. Absolutely not. They are like a premium retailer. They are one of the most expensive places to buy anything. But also because Australia is Australia and shipping is a pain in the ass, sometimes you really need it today, so you go and pay the premium at JB Hi-Fi to get something.
That's awesome. Do you guys have stuff like, I know you have Amazon there. Do you have stuff like Walmarts and stuff there?
No, nothing like Walmart. We don't have big box stores in the way that you would recognize, because like your Walmart and Target, you can kind of go in there and like you can shop for groceries, you can shop for clothing, you can shop for electronics, you can shop for alcohol. That is not a thing here. Like we have Target, but Target is just like toys, a tiny little electronic section, and clothes, and that's it. Or like maybe some homeware stuff. But like the groceries and all the other stuff that you would associate with a Target or a Walmart, they're in their own store.
Okay. Cool.
So kind of
Okay,
like
the Coles are
what Target started as. Because Target wasn't always what it is. That's how Target started.
Yeah.
It was home good and toys and clothes. And they've kind of developed, the grocery side of things, which used to be like superstores. And I think Walmart was the same way.
Yeah.
It used to be the Walmart superstore. And then they kind of just faded that superstore part out of it. There's like, this is just what Walmart does now.
Walmart does.
Which now Walmart is trying to be Amazon. I don't know if you've seen those commercials, but Walmart is trying to be like, I don't know, Amazon. They're like, we have over 500 million items. It's like, cool.
You could find the most random things on the Walmart app. It's pretty crazy.
Also, I gotta say, Tom, have you been to Australia? Because like you've talking about Coles and Woolies, that's not a thing most people would even know about.
I just keep up on my Australian culture from Australian comedians.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Which Australian comedians are you listening to?
Friendly Jordies and Lewis Spears.
Okay, I know Friendly Jordies. I don't know the other one.
He's not that big, but he does a lot of YouTube stuff and does a lot of touring around Australia. Waiting for him to show up to the US one day.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of Australian comedians do want to do a US circuit. Much like
just a long
with
swim.
Combat Robots, you guys just have a lot more people, so there's more people to show up for shows.
So one of my favorite comedians of all time, which Ryan and I have actually just seen recently, is Randy Feltface.
Oh, cool. I also saw Randy recently.
Yeah. Probably in Australia, because I know he just ended his one banana or first banana tour.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I was.
very cool.
He came to Adelaide as his like third to last show on that tour, so I went and saw that show. It was great.
Yeah, he's hilarious. Megan, go ahead.
Alrighty. Kind of expanding on the earlier questions, but what's your favorite part of the bot building process, and what part is the most frustrating?
Oh, good question. I think my favorite part is like the fighting, but putting on a show specifically. I don't think I'd get anywhere near as much enjoyment out of fighting if there wasn't an audience there. Like if we were just, still in somebody's back shed, like I'd enjoy that, but there is something about the crowd reactions, even if you've only got 10 people sitting on chairs at the cage side, when a big hit happens and they react to that, or like you turn your robot on for the first time, or it does the thing like a melty brain spinning up and a kid in the audience goes, oh, that's incredible. I love those moments. And one of my robots, Strange Young Man, he has an actual head on him and he has lights in his eyes. One of my favorite things about him is powering him up for the first time in front of a crowd, because as he powers up, obviously the eyes have lights in them as the power indication. So his eyes light up, and every time I get kids in the crowd go, they're just like, yes, yes.
That's awesome.
Strange Young Man is an incredible looking robot. If you haven't seen a picture of it, just look it up. If you like Paws and Tom's robots, you also like Strange Young Man.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thanks.
It reminds me very much of Mark's gonna kill me.
Mr. Roper.
Mr. Roper. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, very Mr. Roper with the eyes.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, look, I like putting personality into my robots. I think, again, because I like that aspect of putting on the show and like getting people interested, which I think personally kind of comes back to my own start in the sport. Was like, I was 8 years old when we got a smattering of Robot Wars episodes on TV, and I also got Lego Robotics for for Christmas that year, and kind of the double whammy of that was like that had me. I was like, cool, I'm into robots now. Like this is the thing. So I like trying to give that, or like see that spark happen for other people to like get them into the sport. You also asked about the frustrating aspects of combat robotics.
Yep.
There are a number. I think for me, I'm kind of in a toss-up between CAD and expectation versus reality, because CAD, I feel like, is a necessary, like it's obviously a necessary thing, well, at least for me, to get a robot working. I couldn't drill a square hole or like a straight hole unless I've got everything laid out properly to save my life. So I need to do that kind of thing to get my robots working. But also it is the furthest removed from that aspect of like showing people and like, putting on the show type thing. Even, running a YouTube channel, I very, very rarely show the CAD because it's just difficult to do and make interesting and make like, I don't know, entertaining. So it is, it's necessary, but it can be a slog sometimes. And then I'll also say expectation versus reality, because, sometimes you design a thing and then it doesn't work and you just have to keep going, which there's a lot of good lessons to be learned in that, but I'm not going to sit here and, say that it's not frustrating when things don't work the way you expect them to the first time, or the sixth time, as it was the case with Strange Young Man. I am still trying to work on getting that robot to actually lift another robot. Its last 3 iterations have been hammers, because every single time I've like gone, okay, cool, here's the new lift mechanism. This should be the thing that lifts another robot. And each time it has fallen on its face, and I've gone, okay, time to put the hammer back on it again, I guess.
I'm actually teaching an entrepreneurship class this week, and the first thing I told them on Monday was the whole concept of fail fast, fail often, fail forward. It's like you are always going to have those situations where it is not going to work. But as long as you learn one little thing from it and move forward, that's all that matters. So it's that iteration process.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I like the iterating process. I like how, like, the outcomes of that. It is still just frustrating when, you know, you hit the 5th iteration and things still aren't working in a way that you're like, wait a second. Yeah. So, I mean, because, yeah, I like I said, I do like that iterative process. There's one thing I kind of want to put in my videos a little bit more is like the iteration, although I think I just need to like do recaps of my full build processes on things, because if you watch my channel longer term, you can see the iteration as I like, you know, do a video and a thing happens and then next video happens and I'm like, cool, here's how we fixed the thing that happened. But it's been a while since I've done a like sit down and go, cool, here was version 1, here's what happened. Here was version 2, here's what happened. And I think there's definitely
compilation
like
of failures.
Yes. And I think there's value in that type of thing. I mean, I do software for an education company in my like day job. And so one of, you know, the fail fast, fail often, fail forwards is very much a thing for any kind of like engineering education for sure.
Cool. Okay.
Just Cuz Robotics brings you the latest and greatest in beetle-weight drive motor technology, the Blitz Lite, mini size for mighty drive. At under 45 grams, these are the lightest and smallest 6mm shaft drive motors on the market. Our Blitz Lite gear motor includes a fully custom 20mm all-steel gearbox mated to a customized 1604 brushless motor in either 2850 or 3800 kV options. The 29:1 gearbox has a super durable chromoly steel 6mm output shaft and M3 threaded face mounting. The Blitz Lite can deliver the same peak torque as our awesome Dartbox Dragon brushed motors, but are 37% shorter and 25% lighter weight from brushless power. Make your bot a bit lighter with the Blitz Lite, available today at justcuzrobotics.com. That's just C-U-Z robotics.com.
Hey there, bot fans! Are you ready to take your love for the Havoc Rundown to the next level? We've got a ton of ways for you to join the action and support the podcast you love. First, connect with us and fellow robot combat enthusiasts by joining our Discord. It's the perfect place to talk shop, share your favorite bot moments, and stay updated with the latest news and events. Make sure to follow us on Facebook to stay in the loop with episode updates, behind-the-scenes content, and community highlights. It's all happening right there. And if you want to show off your Havoc Rundown pride, check out our merch store on Bonfire. Right now, we've got the official Havoc Rundown logo tee waiting for you. Head to bonfire.com/Havoc-Rundown-T to grab yours today. But wait, there's more. You can also support us directly through our Buy Me a Coffee page at buymeacoffee.com/Havoc Rundown. Every contribution helps to keep the sparks flying and bring you more amazing content. And for the ultimate fans, don't miss our Patreon at patreon.com/Havoc Rundown. As a patron, you'll get exclusive access to bonus content like our Fantasy League drafts, D&D games, special interviews, and other exciting surprises. So what are you waiting for? Join the community, show your support, and keep the gears turning at the Havoc Rundown. We'll see you in the arena. I will ask my question as the last one in the 5 in Focus. So what you kind of talked about this a little bit, but what's something unique about the Australian robot combat scene and something builders in the US might not expect or appreciate until they experience it firsthand?
Oh, good question. So, I mean, like I said, I fought on like in a couple of different places now. I feel like the pits in all events feel fairly similar. Once you're through the door and on the pit table and your robot's down, like the community that this sport has around it across continents is incredible. People are always very friendly, always very helpful, always want to like know the ins and outs of your robot. Like I don't think I've ever been to a competition and somebody has come up and hasn't asked like a really interesting question or like offered to help, or, you know, like I love being in the pits at events. Those are always a great thing. I think just like I said, like I kind of mentioned before, I think the scale is different here. The scale is a little bit smaller. It feels a little bit more like tight-knit, effectively. Not in a way that's like, you know, exclusionary to outsiders. Like, God, every single club here in Australia wants new people in the door. I know certainly here in Adelaide, we get new people in and they're the ones that get the most help and the most attention on their first, second, third event, because we're like, cool, yes, keep coming back, please. Like, bring another robot. Like, you got this. Yeah, this is great. Like, you know.
It's like, what's your number? I'm going to call you up and make sure you come next time.
You can't escape. You're with us now.
Oh, look, I mean, we're not quite that clingy. We do understand that, you know, there are, you know, people have lives outside of combat robots, and that combat robots does take a decent amount of time and effort and energy. I think the other thing too is I'd say that metal floors are basically not a thing in Australia. We run wood a lot, mostly actually MDF. That's probably the other thing that I would say is, because I know NHRL runs plywood, and so like cleats work on plywood. Cleats do not work on MDF. I have tried.
No, it's very soft.
Yeah.
We actually use MDF on something. I've used it on shelving in my attic, and we used it on something else when we were redoing my attic. I forgot what it was, but yeah, it's a very compressed particle-y type substance that I can see, knowing it firsthand, I can see the cleats would not work on it.
Yeah, it's effectively like a block of wood dust and wood glue. That's basically all it is. And yeah, last year I took my melty brain to our Havoc, and on the first day I got permission to run cleats, and I ran the cleats and I could not translate basically at all. The second day I swapped to polyurethane wheels, and hey, look at that, I could translate again. Yeah. Because I also wasn't digging massive holes in the arena all the time.
I can see that it would probably be like trying to drive cleats into mud. I can assume that that's kind of the translation there.
Oh, yeah, very, very much so. Like, if you got traction at all, they were kind of okay. But the second they lost traction, they just, like, dropped the whole robot down. It's just, like, digging into the MDF to the point that you're just like, cool, I just can't move anymore.
Yeah. The best way that I can describe it for anyone listening that's thinking about it is it's the TPU of wood. I guess is like... I can see why you would use it as like the flooring for an arena. I could definitely see why that would be a material for that. That's, yeah.
It's cheap and very available is basically the thing. And yeah, when, you know, you have to replace the floors fairly often, cheap and available is the way to go, basically.
Very true.
So do you have any kind of message for any US builder that might want to make the trip to Australia to fight there? Anyone that listens to this that might want to make that long trip to fight in an Australian arena?
Do it. Absolutely. Like, yes, please. Look, I feel like the big thing I would say, so as I said, all the clubs are kind of small. We have monthly meets basically every single month in all of the clubs that are around the place in Australia. I would say if you're making the trip, make it for one of the big events. Either do like the featherweight nationals or the featherweight sportsmans that are in Brisbane, up around the Gold Coast area, or come to our Adelaide Havoc, which is like a big 2-day, 3-day event, and make a good time of it. Like, I feel like coming to a monthly meet, that's a lot of travel for an afternoon's worth of fighting, whereas going to one of the bigger events is going to get you more bang for your buck, basically. All of our big events are a great time. I personally have traveled, again, as I've said, a couple of times to fight robots. It is so much fun, and you will see like different metas than you're used to. I think that's the other thing I would say about the differences is that even inside Australian clubs, there are different metas because, we're a small group. So your meta is defined by one person or two people where they build a robot, they put it in the arena and everybody goes, oh, I need to build around this now. Damn, okay. So the things you'll see and the robots you'll compete against will be different to what you're used to experiencing. And outside of doing something like, watching my videos or James's videos or Angus's videos, it gives you a kind of different look at how people build robots. Like my current style of beta weight building, I picked up when I went to Bugglebots in the UK because a bunch of the robots over there were built the same way I now build, which is like 2.5D'd CNC'd HDPE, all slot and bolted together. And I saw that over there and went, I like that. And it fits with how my brain kind of conceptualizes robots. And it made all of my build processes from that point on a lot easier because it was a technique that I could just grab wholesale and use, basically.
Yeah. We were actually talking about what the different countries' unique build types are. And the one that came up for the US, especially around NHRL, is just TPU blocks, because most beetle weights in NHRL are just TPU in different forms. So
yeah, and look, that's a thing that I tried to bring to Australia, and I think kind of successfully brought to Australia, because when I went to NHRL, I was lucky enough to be able to build a mini bot for paws. I'd talked to Tom beforehand, and he was like, yeah, look, if you can build something within a pound, you can absolutely bring a mini bot. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I will,
absolutely.
Bend heaven and earth to get a robot built to do that. So I built Squeakimus Maximus because I'd built a robot called Squeak previously, which was a 1 pound squeaky hammer robot that went in with paws. And then when I came back, the next event that had beetles in it, I built 3 of them and called it Cacophony.
I like that.
Put that up against all of the beetles here in Adelaide and basically proved to people that a TPU brick can survive anything, even if it's just a 1 pound TPU brick, because I only printed 3 of them and the 3 chassis survived the entire day despite going up against all of our big spinners. I mean, look, the wheels, the axles that the wheels were on were bent, but they were still driving. The hammers got thrown off multiple times, but they're all repairable and worked all the way through. And then basically as a direct lineage from that, we got a robot in Australia, in Adelaide, called Doom Croissant, who borrowed the front end off of the Cacophony and put a big saw in the middle of it. And he's one of our most dominant combat robots here at the moment.
I love that name, Doom Croissant. That's beautiful.
Yes, that is very cool.
He names a lot of his robots after food, and the front end that I designed for Squeakimus Maximus that became Cacophony looked a little croissant-y, so when he borrowed that wholesale, he was like, cool, it's called Doom Croissant. And I was like, that's great. I mean, I also basically did inspire my biggest challenge and my biggest opponent in the space, but that's fine. Like I said, I like putting on a show and I like the robot fights to be big and impressive. So having somebody that's dishing out big hits in the arena all the time is great. I don't care if it's mine or not. Just having him there and being able to throw a robot into the ceiling, perfect. Love it.
So I had a prediction question down for Thomas, and I think I want to ask it before we move on to listener mailbox. So my predicted question for Thomas was, so Ben, you are living in tomorrow. Can you tell us anything about the future?
Pretty rainy.
Have for breakfast
is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just felt like a very Thomas question to ask.
It is a fun one to have international friends and be like, cool, I've hit, New Year's Eve. And so I can send messages to my friends from, the next year.
So we are going to move from the 5 in Focus into the listener mailbag.
You've reached the voicemail of the Havoc Rundown. Please leave your message after the tone.
So we're going to check our messages here and see what some of our listeners and Discord members have left to ask Ben. And the first one comes from Nick from Crafty Cat Combat. He asked us specifically not to ask this question, so he should know better.
Of course we're going to ask.
He knows that we're going to ask the question. So what's it like fighting with verts that spin in the opposite direction, Ben?
We did have... we had a couple of people try because we've got a big saw meta in Adelaide at the moment. Like, people are putting saws on where you would normally see a vert right now. So we did have a couple of people try running their saws backwards and upside down. So it effectively jamming your opponent between the floor and a saw blade. Look, as it turns out, it's still just better even with a saw to run it up.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So if anyone doesn't understand the joke, Nick was making a joke about Australia spinning backwards. Yeah, okay, because they're upside down.
The toilets do spin the other way.
Well, the toilets spin. Yes, that's that was the joke. So Humby from Tigerhawk Labs says, "Hi Ben, love your videos, and I greatly appreciate you posting some of your antweights on Thingiverse. Who's the top builder in the Australian antweight scene, and what bot gave you the hardest fight?"
Oh, so here's the thing: top builder in the Australian antweight scene is hard to qualify. A lot of our antweight fights are very spread out, and also our antweight fights can be less competitive, depending on the club. So the group that runs in Sydney, that has Angus from Maker's Muse and James from Broken Link Robotics, their antweight scene seems to be very, very competitive, and they are hyper focusing on high damage verts at this point in time. So if I would hazard a guess, probably one of the top Australian builders is probably in that scene because that is what they are focusing on. We may find out this weekend because a bunch of them are bringing antweights to Adelaide's version of Havoc. So if one of them takes out the top spot, that's probably the answer to this question. But on a personal level, I think my favorite builder, especially in the antweights at the moment, is a guy called Cam who fights here in Adelaide. He builds some crazy machines, and this is coming from me, who also builds crazy machines. He builds crazier machines than me. He's built a robot called Whipsnake 37 Trillion, which uses a tape measure to extend the front wedge off the robot.
What?
Yes.
Get the wedge of the robot halfway across the box, basically.
Oh my God.
That's incredible.
Crazy.
So he has done things before, somebody's shoving him towards the pit, and he just extends his wedge and just pushes back the other way, stopping him from going in the pit entirely. Or he's he and his opponent have been sitting in the middle of the arena. He lines up his shot and just extends the wedge, and they just go flying into the pit from the middle of the box. It's nuts.
That is sick. That is awesome. I love that.
He's also got a robot called President Burby, which in his own words is the robot of, I paid for all the IO on a Malinki Nano, I'm using all the IO on a Malinki Nano. It is an overhead saw robot with wings. So it's got wing wedges that tuck into the side and then can spring out and hug a robot to lift them off the ground. And then once they're off the ground, he can hit them with the hammer saw.
Wow.
And he's got that in 150 grams, and the chassis is made of TPU. So it's on the higher end of the weight that you can print a thing.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So like I said, I think he's my favorite builder in Adelaide because just the things that he builds are ridiculous. Also, if you like, I can probably... So ARC, which is the Adelaide Robot Combat Group, have their own YouTube channel. All of our fights get put up on that. I can probably find some President Burby and Whipsnake videos for you if you want to see these.
Yep, link that to us and I will add it into the episode notes. Definitely.
No worries. In fact, I think did I fight? I think I fought President Burby with Guesstimate, my horizontal, in my last video about Guesstimate. Because that's right, I did, because I was complaining about his TPU, because Guesstimate is still running like old school, just a thick tooth to hit into things. And if you hit TPU with a thick tooth on a weapon, it just kind of bounces out of the way. And I was like, okay, I need to do something about this now.
Yeah, that's why everything in NHL Beetles is TPU, made of TPU.
Mm-hmm.
So Patrick from Sad Octopus and Under Destruction says, we love your videos. It was great to meet you in person at NHRL and express just how much help your videos were when we were first starting building. Are there any plans on returning, I think, to NHRL? And do you ever find it challenging to be both a builder and a content creator? Or does one side motivate the other?
So also, I would say thanks to both these people for the comments on the videos. That's great. Yes, also, I loved NHRL. I would love to return to NHRL at some point. I mean, there's the kind of two small issues with that. One is money. I mean, it is a lot to get all the way from Australia to NHRL. I think the last time I went, it was upwards of $4,000 to be there, and I was there for 5 days, I think, basically. Like, I flew in the Thursday, had the Friday to just like get robots ready and stuff, and then I flew out to like Wednesday or something. So it's a very, very short amount of time to be internationally, and even with all of that, it was still quite an expensive little venture. Yeah. And then, so the second thing too is that traveling to the US right now is a little like,
Yep. Yeah, understandable.
Yeah. Look, we're getting a lot of reports in Australia of people not making it through customs and things, and I'm just like,
yep,
that's going to be even worse with robots in the bag and lipos and you know, like having a social media presence. So yeah, it's interesting. I like I said, I would love to get back to NHRL. NHRL was so much fun. And also, I think, as I mentioned before, I really, really do want to do sign a robot up, build it somewhere before the event. Doing that for NHRL would be like insane, absolutely ridiculous. And also probably one of the easier places to do it, because you guys have a lot of like stuff around in terms of workshops and machines and equipment that would make that more possible than like, you know, on a hotel room table or like using a grinder in a bathroom somewhere. The other part of this was, is it challenging to be both a builder and a content creator, or does one side motivate the other? Yes, is the answer to that question. On both fronts, basically. It is difficult to do both because, like, if I don't film it, I can throw together an antweight in a couple of hours. If I film it, it's like 2 to 4 hours worth of time to, you know, set up shots and make sure lighting's fine and make sure audio's okay. And then after all of that stuff is done, there's the, you know, moving all the files onto the computer and editing and uploading and titles and thumbnails and yada, yada, yada. It all takes a lot of time, which does kind of, move away a little bit from the build time, which means that some of my robots don't come out exactly as I want them to, because it's like, cool, I could spend another 8 hours building this robot, but also I need to get this video out, so I need to stop it now and just have the robot I have, and then, you know, edit the video and upload the video and do all of that kind of side of things. But on the flip side of that, part of the reason I started my channel in the first place was I was fighting these monthly meets here in Adelaide. I'd like go home and go, the robot didn't, you know, spin up as fast as I wanted it to, or and when I got hit by a horizontal, the arms flicked sideways and dropped the weapon out. I need to fix that problem. And then 3 weeks later, I'd go, oh no, the event's in 4 days. I need to fix that now. So doing weekly videos was a way of like, cool, I need to get home and do another thing so that I've got like a video out next week, which means that my robot should be maybe more prepared for the event in a month's time, which kind of works, but also in practice, just, putting more deadlines on meant that I got more half-finished robots than I got fully finished robots. So like I said, it's a toss-up. But I also, I enjoy it, and it's good for this kind of thing where people. I really really enjoy that interaction where people's like, hey, it was great watching your videos getting into the sport. Like I learned what to do, what not to do. It's always great when people say those types of things. Also, back to Megan's question, editing and thumb titles and thumbnails, that's the worst part of combat robot building. But I mean, that is highly specific to me. I think actually titles and thumbnails is probably my worst part of that, because I am really, really bad at them, and they are very vital in making a video do well.
Okay, so V from Battle Pack asks, what are your thoughts on Australians skipping to the US 1 pound class and stepping straight from 150G to 3 pounds? Do you find that having the beginner weight class being so low to be restrictive, or does it breed more creativity?
So I think that the 150 gram weight class and the 1 pound weight class exist in the same sphere for me. I feel like you don't need both. Because they are both a kind of entry-level weight class that are a, print most of your chassis, maybe a metal weapon, like beginner, like if somebody's coming into the sport for the first time, you point them at 150 gram or 1 pound class. So I feel like they do the same job, and I feel like you don't need both. At least not in a specific, like one event. If you've got, one event in one state that does 150 gram and then the state over does 1 pound, cool, whatever. Like, I feel like there's a little bit of overlap between them so that you don't really need one of them. Personally, I prefer the 150 gram class over the 1 pound class. Partly because, I've got a lot of experience in it at this point in time. I can throw together a 150 gram robot in a day without even trying, really. And have done so, in actual fact. One of my videos very recently, I built a robot. Like, I started the CAD for the robot at 10:30 the night before the event. Built the robot, competed with the robot, and posted a video of it all in like about 26 hours, basically.
Did you sleep?
A little bit. While the printer was running, printing the chassis of the robot, I slept. But also on that, the low weight restriction thing, I think, is the other reason I like 150 gram class as the beginner weight class, is because for 150 gram robots, there's like 2 or 3 sets of electronics that you can use to get the robot to move and spin a weapon. Like, you've got N20s, you've got N10s, you've got Malinky Nanos, and then you've got a kind of combination of like one very specific Fly Sky receiver and like little dual channel brush motor drivers. So as somebody who, I want to get more people into the sport, when somebody shows up at a fight day, watches a bunch of things, and then comes to me and says, hey, how do I get into this? I can say, cool, here are 2 lists of things, buy one of them, print the chassis, off you go. And you will build a competitive enough first robot. Where I feel once you kind of push a little bit higher, like pushing up into the 1 pound class, you get more options in terms of like weapon motors, drive motors, batteries that you need, speed controllers that you can fit in the weight class. It gets a little bit easier when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, what do I need to get into the sport? To be like, cool, here's 6 different lists of things you could do. Chop and change between those as your robot build needs. Like, it's easier for that smaller weight class to be like, cool, buy one of these 2 things and just go for it. It does have the slight downside, though, of people, especially people who are like classically trained machinists or, are very hands-on people who have like built big things before. You say, start with 150 gram weight class, and they go, I can't do that. My hands are too big. I've had that conversation quite a number of times. The definite downside to the class is people who are like, there's no way. I couldn't fit my fingers in the robot. I can't do that.
Oh, that's funny. I like that. So, very exciting question from Bratman on our. I'm assuming you said you know who that is.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. If you were to build any of your robots as a D&D character, which would you pick, and what would be the class subclass?
So I have played D&D with this person before. A big shout out to the Not Robot Related group, which was our D&D group, is our D&D group when I find time to like join that again. Time zones are hard and very annoying. This is a very interesting question. It's not one I'd put much thought into before seeing it. I think I've got kind of two answers, because the cop-out answer is Strange Young Man, because he's already kind of like anthropomorphized in a way. So Strange Young Man would very, very easily make a like Warforged cleric, because he was designed to lift people up, but most of the time he just hits them with a big hammer, and I feel like that's very cleric coded.
Yes, very much so. That is super cleric.
Yeah. But yeah, outside of that is interesting. I did have another answer to this question, but I'm blanking on it entirely now. Yeah, I feel like maybe this is a party as well. But because this is a party as a like 2-wheel drive vert, this is a party would have to end up being like a human fighter, basically. But, because I've got it, this is a party, maybe in a funny hat with some balloons.
A human fighter with a hat and balloons just walking around.
Yeah.
Nice.
Or maybe he's a bard, because he is a party.
This is true. That does sound very much more like a bard.
Yeah.
There are battle bards. Battle bards is a thing.
Yeah,
it's
battle
not
bards.
It's not like a very well built thing to be, but you can be a battle bard.
Uh-huh. Just as a quick aside on human fighters, I have played a single human fighter, because while I was playing D&D, I was on a mission to play one of every class on the way through. I think I've missed 2, which is Paladin and I think Druid, because I haven't played a straight Druid yet. I've played a Druid class combo, not just Druid on its own. But the one human fighter I played, Steve, he was a luchador wrestling human fighter who believed that he was on a film set the entire time he was running through his D&D campaign. Because I built him just after Jacksepticeye had been in a movie. I think it was the Ryan Reynolds video game movie. And so his whole backstory was that he was a wrestling YouTuber who got invited to a set, and as he rocked up to the set, he got isekai'd into a D&D world and just believed that the entire time he was on a film set and that everybody was method acting to the max.
I love it.
It's hilarious.
Oh, man. My favorite fighter that I was actually, the campaign just ended not that long ago. I had an Eldritch Knight fighter in my main tactic, to the point where it annoyed the hell out of the DM was I used grease almost every single fight, and using grease with a fighter, and especially if they don't have good dex score, any creature, any person not having a good dex score is amazing. It is the best, especially the last fight. The BBEG of the whole campaign fell on the grease. And I was like, okay, I win. All right. And then early on in the campaign, I was like, Mark, my DM, I was like, does grease catch on fire? You're the DM, you have to tell me. And he was like, you know what, I'm going to rule that it catches fire. I'm like, okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And all the time it was grease the floor, throw a torch. Okay, you're on fire.
Yeah. Like, you're going to regret telling me I can do that.
It's wild that doesn't happen, rules as written. But I feel like that is one of the like really common homebrews is that, absolutely, light grease on fire. Like, it's grease.
Yeah. Eldritch Knight isn't like a very popular fighter subclass, but I absolutely love playing it. It's just like, I'm a wizard with less power, but it's fine because I don't die in fights.
Mm-hmm. It does seem like fun, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, very cool. Garfy, which I believe this is one of our UK.
Yep.
Right. I need to start asking for real names when we take mailbag questions. This is one of the upside down themed questions, but is invertibility more important in Australian events given how often you find yourself upside down?
I do build a lot of invertible robots. I will say that about this question. I have also had an idea in the back of my brain for a little while where, like, maybe around the start of April sometime, I'm going to release a video about how we managed to fight in Australia with all of the problems with, being upside down and so forth.
It's not really well.
Like I said, it's been tickling around in the back of my brain for a little while. It may not be next year, but at some point in time, I will make that video, I think.
You should just upload an entire video of an event of you fighting fights in an event and just have the camera upside down, and then the captions just say, sorry, forgot to apply the filter or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so our last question before we end in the listener mailbag is from Kokoda Mane. It says, hello, Ben. I'm a huge fan of your videos. You built many interesting robots over the years, and so I wanted to ask, which one is your favorite?
I mean, this is like picking favorite children, but harder because I've got way more of them. It is a very, very hard question because I also feel like my favorites maybe don't necessarily line up with like a lot of my viewers' favorites specifically. So like, This Is a Party and Annie, Are You Okay? I feel like are the solid contenders for my audience's favorite robot builds that I've ever done. And while I like both of those builds, I don't think that they're my favorites, mostly because when I'm going for a favorite, it needs to have a like weird factor or an interest factor that's like more than just box on wheels with spinner, which is a little bit reductive to call both of those things box on wheels with spinner. But when you boil them all the way down to their base principles, that is what they are. And I like it. I do still like them a lot, but my favorites are more things like, if I was going to pick, I'd say like for a beta weight, maybe Breakfast, my robot that I made out of a toaster. That was a lot of fun and just very silly. The fact that I put a little like printed sheet in the opening of the toaster to make it look like there was still toast in there while there was also a horizontal spinner coming out of it was fun. I really enjoyed that. I also, my antweight is probably a toss-up between Squeak, who is the squeaky hammer robot that I really, really like, but YouTube does not like. The videos I post of Squeak get no views at all, well, at least comparatively. And I really like that robot. Crowds really like that robot. It's very, very fun to do emotional damage to people by pinning them in the corner and squeaking the hammer on them as many times as possible.
Emotional damage.
So either that or a long time ago, after I came back from Bugglebots, I built a shark robot, which was a rubber shark puppet off of one of the competitors at Bugglebots, which was very generously gifted to me. And I built it into an antweight, despite the fact that the shark puppet head itself weighed about 100 grams. Because I built it like using a bristle system so I could get a shuffle of weight bonus so I could run the shark, like the rubber shark puppet head. Like that, yeah. Those two, one of those two is my favorite, and I'm not picking. I can't pick favorites there.
Two favorites are okay.
Sorry, what was that?
Two favorites are okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'm glad we're doing two favorites because I think in feathers, my two favorites are Strange Young Man, because even as much as he's a pain because he doesn't lift anything, he's still fun, and watching people like see him fight is always fun. And my open entry, which is very, very obvious, which is just a massive bar spinner. It flicks itself upside down half the time, but just having a half-meter long, very heavy bar on a featherweight is a lot of fun. So
That sounds nuts.
he hasn't competed for a while because there hasn't been like many open featherweight events in Australia in like basically since the pandemic, but they're starting to pick those back up now. So I really do want to rebuild him or rebuild it and go again, because its biggest problem at the moment is that it had to run two different battery voltages in it, one to run the drill motors that I was running for drive and one to run the weapon. But with some stuff I'm doing with Strange Young Man, I'm looking at new brushless drive system. So I'm thinking if I put the brushless drive in very, very obvious, I can have it on 6S the whole way through and just simplify everything inside there, which will help a lot.
Okay. So that wraps up another episode of the Havoc Rundown. Huge thank you to Ben for joining us and giving us a deep dive into what combat robotics looks like in Australia. Thank you for being on, Ben.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Yippee!
If you want to see more of Ben, be sure to check out Team Panic online and follow along with his work with the Adelaide combat robotics scene. Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on everything in the world of combat robotics and the Havoc Rundown Fantasy League by using our link tree at linktr.ee/Havoc Rundown. Again, that's linktr.ee/Havoc Rundown. You can find our socials as well as our merch on our bonfire page there. We'll see you next episode as we continue our journey around the globe, exploring how bot combat thrives in different corners of the world. Thank you again, Ben, for being on. Everyone say good night or goodbye to our listeners.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Good night and goodbye.
Bye.